15 United Nations Mediation. Author, Wild Wolverine. When the UN envoy arrived in Pakistan, Lieutenant General Narampasad's special plane landed at the Safar Jone military airport in New Delhi. He was worried, not because the border conflict was escalating, and the border battle was still under control. He is concerned that Singh's Ministry of Defense is spiraling out of control, and Singh is pulling out all the stops to push for an all-out war between two nuclear powers. The Lieutenant General rushed to the capital to participate in the final decision-making meeting, hoping to prevent all this from happening, but in this emergency cabinet meeting, he is just a summoned military general, and he may not have the opportunity to speak. The special car from the Ministry of Defense to pick him up was already waiting outside the airport, and he immediately rushed to the Prime Minister without stopping for a moment. When the car leaves the airport, you can see that the street is empty. It is 6 o'clock in the morning, and the traffic situation is not bad. When driving to Nehru Park, Pasad saw that the ground was covered with tattered banners, dirty and broken leaflets, and the smell of burning garbage. The pungent burning smell penetrated into his nose. "Please slow down, Corporal, is the Chinese embassy on the left?" the Admiral asked. "Yes, the students protested here for a day yesterday and burned a few flags," the driver said. "Protest?" "Yes, sir. Protest against China's protection of Pakistan at the United Nations. Protest against them selling arms to Pakistan," the driver replied. "Did the students go to the US Embassy to make trouble?" "I've never heard of that, sir." "Well, the former president of the Democratic Party of the United States is now acting as a mediator for the United Nations in Lahore. The best equipment of the Pakistan Air Force is sold in the United States." "Sir, the Ministry of the Interior will definitely handle the students' affairs," the driver said confidently. "Ministry of Home Affairs? Drive well, Corporal." Pasad knew that these protests against the Chinese embassy were actually the Ministry of Home Affairs fanning the flames behind the scenes, the purpose of which was to show the hearts and minds of the Indian people. Prime Minister Khan believed that this could stop the Chinese team from Pakistan aid. But is it really that simple? Many years ago, when Pasad was a battalion commander, he served in a tank regiment with the current Minister of Defense, Singh, fighting together in East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. Pasad knew this combative comrade well, and his military adventurism on the battlefield resulted in a surprise victory at the cost of over 80% of his tank company losses. After the war, Singh was selected to study army tactics at Sandhurst Royal Military Academy because of his heroic performance and family background. After completing his studies, he left the army early and retired to politics. Inside, he is known for his original insights, but his rhetoric. He has been unhappy during the Congress Party's reign, even repeatedly losing in regional council elections in his hometown of Gujarat. He can only wait for an opportunity to display his ambitions. After Khan of the People's Party was elected as Prime Minister, Singh got such an opportunity as he wished. Khan and Singh are the same kind of people in their bones, but one is good at speech and the other is better at action. They maintain a high degree of agreement on all Muslim issues. The second Mumbai massacre has made national sentiment in India at an all-time high. The BJP sees the UN investigation as a partiality, and the ruling BJP takes advantage of the situation to incite populism. All signs indicate that the current conflict is just the beginning, and what will happen next, the Army Chief of Staff did not dare to think too much. "Look, the Chinese embassy is raising the flag," the driver said enthusiastically. Through a small patch of wood in the park, a red flag can be seen rising in the distance. Pasad thought, over the Himalayas, they are probably having a meeting? Lin Huisheng ended his long flight and flew over a province in the hinterland of China. Although this trip to Pakistan lasted only 7 days, he still wrote a not-so-short report on the plane. At the meeting of the General Staff of the People's Republic of China, talk about your views on the characteristics of this local conflict. He is just an ordinary staff officer, so in principle, he can't involve too much strategic judgment, but he has a hunch in his heart that this conflict will not be like the few times in 1998 or 2008, and things will definitely not be like this. Simple. Therefore, he added a section at the end of the entire report, or added some of his own views on the direction of the war. He believed that Pakistan had put too much emphasis on the defense of the northern mountains, and it was not suitable for launching a large-scale attack. When the plane landed slowly, Lin Huaisheng saw an Air Force Boeing 737 parked in the north of the base airport. This was the Air Force plane to pick up dignitaries. He had a hunch that this meeting at the base might be unusual. Level leaders to participate. After the plane stopped, Lin Huaisheng closed the computer and waited for a few large and small engineers from a military enterprise on the same plane to get off the plane first. It is said that they went to Pakistan to observe the launch of a new type of cruise missile from the Phantom V aircraft. The missile has deep Chinese technical roots, but the test was temporarily cancelled because of the arrival of the UN envoy, and the missile can be loaded with nuclear warheads. The Pakistani government does not want to appear too tough at this moment. When Lin Huaisheng walked out of the cabin door, he saw his teacher and old leader, Major General Su Jingge, standing below him. This was an abnormal phenomenon, because this old man was notoriously indifferent and would never take a plane from a lower level. After the two met, they exchanged a word or two hastily, shook hands, and then Major General Su got straight to the point. I heard that you went to the border to cause trouble to others this time. He, that's about it, teacher. A jaguar of the Indian Army was mutilated on the border. I happened to be nearby, so I went with the Pakistani team. After a visit, the Pakistani side said that there would be no danger, but it just happened that there was less firefight. Lin Huaisheng said. Before doing things, it's best to use your brain first. If you are caught by the Indian side, it will be very bad for the relationship between China and India. Especially now that the United Nations is mediating the conflict between the two countries, it will also have a negative impact on the Pakistani side. But, after all, it's still on the Pakistani side of the line of control. So, Lin Huaisheng said. So, are you taking it lightly? We have some information. The Indian commander's report mentioned that there are East Asians in civilian clothes in the Pakistani team acting as military advisors. Lin Huaisheng stopped. How is this possible? The firefight distance is more than 300 meters. Could it be, because I don't have a beard? Lin Huaisheng said while rubbing his chin. It's not surprising, it means that the other party has more brains than you, and the judgment is very accurate. Oh, by the way, how is the combat effectiveness of this Indian army? At least in the use of helicopters in the mountains, they are very skilled. Combat skills, high level. I tend to think that this encounter is not an ordinary mountain army. Well, this judgment is quite reliable. It is indeed a paratrooper commando of the Indian Army. The Major General said that he knew more about the mountains than Lin Huaisheng. Paratrooper commando. By the way, how was your report prepared? The Major General ignored Lin Huaisheng's stubbornness and continued to ask about the report. An outline has been drawn up. I initially think that if there is a conflict of any size in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir after June, it will end in another defeat for the Pakistani side. The line of control will advance a little at a time, and the Indians will occupy the entire glacier zone. Is that so? But I'm here to tell you that this report is not available today. The Major General waved his hand and said. I can't use it. Lin Huaisheng wondered. He didn't expect a telegram to call him back, and it turned out to be such a situation. I'm in a hurry to call you back. The purpose is not from the west, but from the east. The General Counselor saw your report last year and thought it was good. Knowing that you have been researching at the forefront of Medog for many years, that's why I brought you here. Shannon area. Lin Huaisheng was a little confused for a while. Yes, Shannon, let me give you the bottom line. According to the latest analysis, India is likely to have a big fight this time. At this moment, the Prime Minister's Office of India is holding a cabinet promotion meeting. The Major General stopped to look at his watch. So, the direction of Assam is likely to send several divisions, or even an army to the west. This may be a real opportunity for us. I think you also know that India is caught in the Western Front. It is 415, the main premise of the 7th Second Plan. The 4157 Second Plan. Lin Huaishan's mind paused, and he slowly sorted out some old memories. This ancient plan was formulated by the General Staff in the 1960s. The combat plan, the essence of the plan is very simple. When India is deeply immersed in the war in Pakistan, it will recover its territory and at the same time contain India's medium-scale operations. The plan has never been implemented, mainly because the previous Indo-Pakistani wars the Indian Army quickly won and ended, so the substantive premise for the implementation of the plan never appeared, and only countless sand table games were carried out. In the 1980s, this plan was revised once, adding the breakthrough part of the Army aviation, so the final name was changed to the 4157B plan. This, teacher, do you believe that India will fall into a war of attrition? The Pakistan Army is not their air force, the combat power. Alas, how many times have I said this? This is not something you should consider. Just say when it comes to their deployment on the front line, don't give more personal opinions unless the chief asks you. Of course, this is not very likely. This is a video conference, and you can't see the chief on the podium. Okay, I'll prepare now. Lin Huaishan shook his head and said. He knew the mountains and rivers in this area very well, and knew that this plan was not realistic. The infantry's attack in this area was hindered by climate or logistics. An objective reason for the automatic retreat of the 1962 punishment war. Don't prepare for today. In the morning, there will be an international policy discussion at the conference hall. They are all well-known experts in South Asian issues and international politics. The opportunity is rare. I have arranged an admission card for the comparison. You can sit in the back row and listen to a listen. It is good for frontline intelligence personnel to develop an international perspective. Teacher, I won't go to the nonsense of those scholars, right? It's all just chatter. I'm still. Fart, you think it counts? Bunker, drawing a map is intelligence gathering? These are nothing more than things that scouts can do. If you want to go, you can go. Stop talking nonsense. Lin Huaishan hurriedly shut up. He knew the teacher's temper. If he said 1 + 1 = 3, which means that the answer you knew before was wrong.